Billionaire was taking his mother home until he saw his pregnant wife carrying Firewoods and denied her. He slowed his luxury SUV, then froze. What he saw on that dusty road would expose the secret he spent years hiding. The black SUV moved slowly through the village road, raising soft red dust behind it. Inside, the air was cool and quiet. Adebio King sat behind the wheel, dressed in a sharp suit, his gold watch shining as sunlight slipped through the window. Beside him sat his elderly mother, Mama Nola, calm and smiling, her wrapper neatly tied, her hands resting on her lap. For the first time in many years, Adebio had agreed to take his mother back to the village himself. Not because he wanted to, but because people were watching now. Business partners, social media, church friends, everyone knew him as the kind African billionaire in America. Cameras loved him, interviews praised him, donations followed him, but the village. That place still made his chest feel tight. "Slow down, my son," Mama Nola said gently. "This road still remembers your feet." Adebio forced a smile. "Yes, Mama," he kept his eyes forward. Then suddenly his foot hit the brake. About 20 steps ahead, a woman walked slowly under the hot sun. Her back was bent, her dress was faded. On her head sat a heavy bundle of firewood. She was breathing hard, and she was pregnant. Adebio's heart skipped, his fingers tightened around the steering wheel. "No, no, no," he whispered. Mama Nola leaned forward to look. "Who is that woman?" she asked softly. The woman took another step and then looked up. Their eyes met. It was Zuri, his wife, his pregnant wife. Zuri's face changed when she saw the SUV. For a brief moment, hope flashed in her tired eyes. She adjusted the firewood on her head and lifted her free hands slightly. "Adebio," she called out. "Please," Mama Nola gasped. "Is that not your wife?" Adebio's chest began to pound. His mind raced. What was Zuri doing here? Why was she carrying firewood? Why was she alone? Before Mama Nola could say another word, Adebio pressed the window button. The glass rolled up. "Mama, sit back," he said quickly. "It's not what you think." Mama Nola turned to him, confused. "But that is your wife. She is heavy with child." Outside, Zuri walked closer, step by painful step. Sweat ran down her face. The firewood shook on her head. "Adebio, please," she begged, louder now. "I only need help. I'm tired." Mama Nola reached for the door handle. "Stop the car. What are you doing?" Adebio slammed his hand on the steering wheel. "Mama, no." His voice was sharp, too sharp. Zuri reached the side of the SUV. She placed her palm against the tinted glass. Her breathing was fast. Her voice trembled. "Please," she said. "For the baby." For 1 second, just one, Adebio felt something crack inside him. Then fear rushed in. Fear of being seen, fear of questions, fear of shame. He shook his head and looked away. "I don't know her," he said coldly. Mama Nola stared at him like she didn't hear right. "What did you say?" Adebio pressed the accelerator. The SUV moved forward. Zuri's hand slid off the glass. The firewood shifted. She cried out and stumbled, barely keeping her balance. Dust rose around her feet as the car pulled away. Mama Nola shouted, "Adebio, stop this car!" But he didn't. The village swallowed Zuri behind them. Inside the SUV, silence fell heavy. Mama Nola's voice shook. "That woman is your wife. She carries your child. Why did you deny her?" Adebio swallowed hard. "Mama, she should not be here." "Should not be here?" Mama Nola repeated. "Or should not be seen?" He didn't answer. Mama Nola closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. "When your father died, I carried firewood like that," she said quietly. "I carried you on my back at the same time." Adebio felt the words hit him like stones, but pride kept his mouth shut. Back on the road, Zuri stood still for a long moment. Her legs shook. Slowly, she lowered the firewood from her head and sat on the ground, breathing hard, one hand on her belly. "Baby," she whispered, tears falling. "Did you see that?" Villagers passing by stopped and stared. Some shook their heads. Others helped her lift the wood again. "That is the billionaire's wife," someone murmured. "And he left her like this?" Zuri rose slowly and continued walking, step by painful step, toward the small mud house at the edge of the village. The house Adebio told the world no longer existed. As the SUV disappeared down the road, Adebio didn't know one thing yet. Denying kindness had just opened the door to a storm that would touch everything he loved. As the billionaire drove away with his proud silence, Zuri walked on with a broken heart, and her unborn child felt every step. What Zuri does next, and how one secret begins to destroy a billionaire's perfect life. The sun was already low when Zuri finally reached the small mud house at the edge of the village. Her legs felt like wood. Her back burned. Carefully, she lowered the firewood from her head and leaned it against the wall. Then she sat down slowly, breathing hard, one hand pressing her belly. "Easy, easy, my baby," she whispered. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not just from pain, but from shame. Inside that same moment, miles away on the smooth highway, Adebio drove in silence. Mama Nola sat stiffly beside him, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. She had not spoken since he drove away from Zuri. The silence was louder than any shouting. Finally, Mama Nola broke it. "You have changed," she said softly. "Money can make a man blind, but it should not make him heartless." Adebio clenched his jaw. "Mama, you don't understand." Mama Nola turned to him slowly. "Then explain why your pregnant wife carries firewood like a widow with no family." Adebio's hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. "She embarrassed me," he snapped. "She should not be living like that. People will talk." Mama Nola shook her head. "People will always talk, but God watches." Adebio said nothing. Back in the village, Zuri managed to stand up again. Inside the house, there was little. Just a thin mattress, a small table, and a cooking pot blackened by smoke. She poured water into a cup with shaking hands and drank slowly. She remembered how different her life once was. She remembered the city apartment, the soft bed, the promises. Adebio had knelt in front of her once, she thought bitterly. He said he would never let me suffer. When she became pregnant, everything changed. At first, Adebio smiled. He touched her belly, he spoke about the future. Then slowly he started sending her away, for rest, he said. Village air is good for pregnant women. But the money he sent became smaller, then irregular, then stopped. Zuri rested her head against the wall. "Why?" she whispered. "What did I do wrong?" At that same time, Adebio arrived at his private guest house near the village. Workers rushed to open the gate. Security men bowed, yet inside him nothing felt settled. That night Mama Nola refused to eat. "A mother who eats while another mother suffers cannot sleep," she said quietly. Adebio lay awake on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Zuri's face haunted him, her eyes, her shaking hands, her swollen belly. "I had no choice," he told himself. "I had to protect my image." But another voice whispered, "Or your pride." The next morning, Mama Nola rose early. She tied her wrapper firmly and picked up her walking stick. "Where are you going?" Adebio asked. "I am going to greet my daughter-in-law," Mama Nola replied. Adebio froze. "Mama, please," she looked at him sharply. "You may deny her, I will not." Before he could stop her, Mama Nola walked out. When Mama Nola reached Zuri's house, Zuri was outside trying to split firewood. Her hands were weak, tears fell silently as she struggled. "Zuri," Mama Nola called. Zuri turned and froze. "Mama," she whispered. The axe dropped from her hand. She rushed forward and knelt despite her belly. "Mama, forgive me." Mama Nola pulled her up and hugged her tightly. "No, I am the one who failed you." Zuri broke down completely. She cried like a child, holding Mama Nola's wrapper. Inside the house, Mama Nola saw everything. The thin mattress, the empty food bowls, the tired woman carrying life inside her. Her heart burned. Meanwhile, Adebio sat in his guest house, restless. He kept checking his phone. No calls, no messages. Then his assistant rushed in. "Sir, people are talking." "Talking about what?" The villagers saw Madame Zuri carrying firewood. "Some recorded it." Adebio's stomach dropped. "Recorded?" "Yes, sir. Videos are spreading. They say you abandoned your pregnant wife." Adebio jumped to his feet. "Delete it. Do something," but it was already too late. By afternoon, the video had reached Lagos. By evening, it crossed oceans. African billionaire's wife seen carrying firewood while he drives luxury SUV. Comments exploded. "This is wickedness. Money without humanity. Is this the man we praise?" Adebio stared at his phone, sweat on his forehead. Back in the village, Mama Nola held Zuri's hands and spoke firmly. "You will not carry firewood again. If my son refuses to be a man, I will be your strength." Zuri shook her head weakly. "Mama, I don't want trouble." Mama Nola smiled sadly. "Trouble already exists. Silence will not fix it." That night, Adebio received a call from his business partner in the United States. "Adebio," the voice said coldly, "we need to talk. Sponsors are worried." Adebio's heart pounded. For the first time, fear replaced pride. And deep down, he felt something else too, regret knocking loudly on a door he had locked for years. As the video spread across the world, Adebio realized too late. The wife he denied was about to expose the life he lied about. How the truth begins to destroy the billionaire's empire, and the shocking decision Mama Nola makes next by morning. Adebio King's name was everywhere. Phones rang without rest. Emails flooded in. Notifications exploded like fireworks he could not stop. The same internet that once praised him now pointed fingers at him. African billionaire exposed. pregnant wife abandoned, money without mercy. Adebyo sat alone in the guest house living room, his phone shaking in his hand. He refreshed his screen again and again, hoping the story would disappear. It didn't. Instead, it grew. A new video appeared, clearer, closer. It showed Zuri walking slowly with firewood on her head. Her face tired, her belly heavy, and in the reflection of the SUV window, Adebyo's car could be seen driving away. There was no denying it now. Adebyo threw the phone onto the couch and stood up, pacing. "How did this happen?" he muttered. "How did it reach this far?" His assistant called again. "Sir, 2 sponsors have pulled out. Another one wants an explanation." "Tell them it's fake," Adebyo snapped. "Say it's village drama." The assistant hesitated. "Sir, Mama Nola has spoken." Adebyo froze. "Spoken where?" "She spoke to the villagers. Someone recorded her." Adebyo's heart sank. Back in the village, Mama Nola sat under the mango tree with Zuri beside her. Villagers gathered quietly, listening. Mama Nola's voice was calm but strong. "My son is rich," she said, "but today I am ashamed of him." Murmurs spread. "He forgot where he came from," Mama Nola continued. "He forgot the woman carrying his child. That is not wealth, that is poverty of the heart." Zuri lowered her head, tears dripping onto her dress. Someone recorded everything, and the internet listened. By afternoon, hashtags trended. People who once admired Adebyo now questioned him. Charity boards paused partnerships. Invitations were withdrawn. In the guest house, Adebyo watched his empire shake. Mama Nola arrived back later that evening. He stood up quickly. "Mama, why would you do that?" She looked at him calmly. "Why would you do this?" Adebyo swallowed. "You embarrassed me." Mama Nola shook her head slowly. "No, my son. You embarrassed yourself." He tried to speak, but the words refused to come. Mama Nola sat down and sighed deeply. "Zuri is suffering, your child is suffering. Yet you worry about your image." Adebyo's voice broke. "You don't understand the pressure." Mama Nola leaned forward. "I carried pressure on my head in firewood so you could eat." Silence filled the room. That night, Zuri went into pain. At first, she thought it was just tiredness. Then the pain grew sharper. Her breathing became fast. She cried out softly. Mama Nola rushed to her side. "This is not normal," she said. Villagers gathered quickly. Someone ran for a motorcycle, another fetched water. Zuri held her belly, crying. "Adebyo," Mama Nola whispered, "your child is coming too soon." They rushed Zuri to the small clinic nearby. The nurse frowned when she saw her condition. "She needs proper care," the nurse said. "Stress is too much." Mama Nola held Zuri's hand all night. Meanwhile, Adebyo sat in the guest house, staring at his phone. Calls came in, lawyers, partners, journalists. He ignored them all. Then his phone rang with a number he knew. The clinic. His heart stopped. "Sir," the nurse said urgently, "your wife is in danger." "The baby, too." Adebyo's knees weakened. For the first time, his wealth meant nothing. He drove fast to the clinic, dust flying behind him. When he arrived, he saw Mama Nola standing outside, her face tight with worry. "Where is she?" he asked. Mama Nola didn't answer immediately. She looked at him with eyes full of pain. "She asked for you," Mama Nola said quietly, "even after everything." Adebyo's throat closed. Inside, Zuri lay on the bed, sweating, weak. When she saw him, her eyes filled with tears. "You came," she whispered. Adebyo fell to his knees beside the bed. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice shaking. "I was wrong." Zuri turned her face away. "Sorry doesn't heal wounds." The doctor entered. "We will do our best," he said seriously. "But you must pray." Hours passed like years. Outside, Mama Nola sat silently, her hands clasped. She whispered prayers into the night sky. Finally, a cry filled the air, a baby's cry. The nurse stepped out. "The baby is alive," she said, "but weak, the mother too." Relief and fear mixed in Adebyo's chest. When he saw his child, tiny, fragile, his heart broke completely. "This is what I almost lost," he whispered, but life did not pause for his tears. The next morning, news broke again. Not about the baby, but about his company. An investigation had been opened, accounts frozen, papers served. Adebyo stared at the document in his hand, shaking. Everything was falling apart at once. And deep down, he felt a terrible truth settle in. The day he denied kindness was the day everything began to collapse. As Adebyo held his fragile newborn, he didn't know one thing yet. The biggest loss of his life was still ahead. How the billionaire's empire begins to crumble, and the shocking choice Zuri makes next. The hospital room was quiet except for the soft beeping of machines. Zuri lay weak on the bed, her skin pale, her eyes half closed. The newborn slept inside a small glass crib beside her, wrapped tightly, breathing softly like a fragile promise. Adebio stood between them, his wife and his child, and for the first time in his life he felt truly small. Money could not fix this moment. Power could not reverse the past. Pride could not save him now. Mama Nola entered the room slowly. She looked at the baby, then at Zuri, and finally at her son. Her eyes held no anger, only deep disappointment. "The doctor says she must rest," Mama Nola said. "Too much stress almost took 2 lives." Adebio nodded slowly. "Mama, I want to make things right." Mama Nola studied him for a long moment. "Wanting is easy," she replied. "Doing is the test." Outside the hospital, the world was not waiting. Reporters gathered at the gate. Phones rang endlessly. Adebio's lawyer arrived with a face tight like stone. "Sir," the lawyer said quietly, pulling him aside, "the situation is serious." "How serious?" Adebio asked. "The government has opened a full investigation. Accounts are frozen. Properties are under review. Your partners are distancing themselves." Adebio closed his eyes. Just days ago, he was untouchable. Now everything he built stood on shaking ground. Back in the hospital room, Zuri slowly opened her eyes. She looked at Adebio, not with love, not with anger, but with exhaustion. "You came late," she said softly. The words cut deeper than shouting ever could. "I know," Adebio whispered. "I failed you." Zuri turned her face toward the window. "When I carried that firewood," she said, "I wasn't just tired. I was hoping." Adebio's throat tightened. "I hoped you would stop," Zuri continued. "I hoped you would remember who you were before the money." Silence filled the room. Mama Nola placed her hand gently on Zuri's arm. "My daughter, rest." Later that evening, Adebio returned alone to his guest house. For the first time, the place felt empty, cold, heavy. He sat on the bed and stared at the wall. His phone buzzed again, a message from a U.S. board member. "We are suspending you as CEO until further notice." Adebio dropped the phone, suspended. The word echoed in his mind. Another message followed, this one from a charity organization he founded. "Due to recent events, we are reviewing your role as ambassador." He laughed bitterly. "So this is how it ends?" That night, sleep did not come. He remembered his childhood, bare feet on dusty roads, his mother's voice encouraging him, the sacrifices he once promised never to forget. When did I become this man? He wondered. The next morning, Mama Nola visited him. "I am going back to the village," she said calmly. Adebio looked up sharply. "Why?" "To stay with Zuri," she replied. "She needs support." "What about me?" Adebio asked, almost like a child. Mama Nola's voice was gentle but firm. "You need to face the consequences of your choices." Adebio stood up. "Mama, please." "I'm losing everything." Mama Nola nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, "now you understand how it feels." Those words stayed with him long after she left. Days passed. Zuri recovered slowly. The baby gained strength. Mama Nola stayed by her side, cooking, cleaning, helping, just as she had done all her life. Adebio visited when he could, but something had changed. Zuri was distant. She accepted help, but not affection. One evening, as the sun set orange over the village, Zuri finally spoke. "Adebio," she said quietly. He looked at her quickly. "Yes, I need to be honest with you." His heart skipped. "About what?" Zuri took a deep breath. "I can forgive you, but forgiveness does not mean things go back to how they were." Adebio felt the ground shift under his feet. "I stayed quiet for too long," Zuri continued. "I suffered alone. I was denied in public, and now I need space to heal." "What are you saying?" he asked, his voice shaking. "I am saying," Zuri said softly, "that I will stay here with Mama, with the baby." For now," Adebio repeated. "Yes," she replied, "because trust does not return just because regret shows up." Adebio felt tears burn his eyes. "I'll change," he said desperately. "I swear," Zuri looked at him calmly. "Change is not a promise, it's a process." As Adebio walked away that night, the village felt different, smaller, quieter. For the first time, he felt the weight of being alone. And far away in offices and courtrooms, files continued to move. Papers were signed, decisions were made. The fall was no longer coming. It had already begun. As Adebio watched his wife choose distance over comfort, he didn't know one thing yet. The final consequence of his pride was about to arrive. How the billionaire faces his greatest loss, and whether kindness can still save him. The courtroom was colder than Adebio expected. Not because of the air, but because of the silence. He sat on the wooden bench wearing a plain suit, no gold watch, no assistants whispering in his ears. Just him, his lawyer, and the heavy truth sitting on his shoulders. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked down at the files. "Adebio King," he began, "you are charged with financial misconduct, misrepresentation, and abuse of influence." Each word hit like a slow drum. Adebio lowered his head. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited like vultures. The same cameras that once followed his charity visits now waited to capture his fall. Back in the village, Zuri sat under the mango tree with Mama Nola. The baby slept peacefully on her chest. For the first time in a long while, Zuri felt calm. Not happy, but calm. Mama, Zuri said softly, do you think he can change? Mama Nola looked at the child and smiled sadly. Change is possible, she said, but consequences do not disappear. Days later, the verdict came. Adebio was found guilty on multiple counts. His assets were seized temporarily, his companies placed under new leadership. His name removed from boards, foundations, and public honors. The judge's final words echoed in the hall, power without responsibility destroys itself. As Adebio was escorted out, he didn't fight. He didn't shout, he simply nodded. That night, alone in a small rented apartment far from luxury, Adebio sat on the floor. No chandelier, no marble floors, just silence. For the first time, no one called him sir. For the first time, he felt what it meant to be ordinary. Weeks passed. Months passed. Adebio sold his remaining possessions quietly to settle debts. He attended counseling. He volunteered anonymously at shelters, washing dishes, carrying boxes, helping without cameras. One afternoon, an old woman struggled with firewood outside the shelter. Adebio rushed forward. Please, he said gently, let me help. As he lifted the firewood, tears filled his eyes. The weight felt familiar, painful, honest. In the village, Zuri watched her child take his first steps. Mama Nola laughed like she hadn't laughed in years. Then one day, a letter arrived. It was from Adebio. He did not beg. He did not explain. He only wrote, I lost everything I thought mattered, and I finally found what I forgot. I am sorry, not for being exposed, but for being unkind. If forgiveness ever comes, I will receive it quietly. Zuri folded the letter slowly. That evening, she walked to the small hill behind the village. Adebio stood there already, waiting, not close, not hopeful, just present. I didn't come to ask for anything, he said before she spoke. I only wanted to apologize face to face. Zuri looked at him for a long time. I forgive you, she said at last. Adebio exhaled sharply, tears falling. But Zuri continued calmly, forgiveness does not mean reunion, he nodded. I will raise our child here, Zuri said, where humility still lives. I understand, Adebio replied. Mama Nola watched from a distance, her heart heavy, but peaceful. Years later, Adebio's name returned to the news, not as a billionaire, but as a man who rebuilt schools quietly, who funded clinics without his name on the wall, who helped widows without posting pictures. He never remarried. Every month he visited the village. He knelt to greet Mama Nola. He played with his child. He listened more than he spoke. One evening, as the sun dipped low, an old woman walked past carrying firewood. Adebio stood up immediately. Please, he said softly, lifting it for her. Let me help. The woman smiled. God bless you, my son. Adebio smiled too through tears, because some lessons are learned too late. But they are learned forever. Kindness denied once destroyed a billionaire's world, but kindness practiced daily rebuilt his soul. Backhand index pointing right, what would you have done if you were in his place? Comment your thoughts, like, and subscribe for more powerful stories of life, choices, and consequences.